So here we have it, ladies and gentlemen, no doubt the video that we're going to look back on at the end of the season and just laugh at how wrong I was with some of these predictions. So in today's video we're going to be doing our best to try and predict the outcome of this upcoming season. Now bearing in mind that we've still got a month to go of this transfer window, the Championship being the most unpredictable league in the world as well, it's not going to be an easy one this year. But what I want to know from you guys is, bouncing off my predictions, what do you think is going to happen this year? Where do you think your club's going to finish? Who's going to be getting relegated and who's finishing in the top 6? Let me know down below. Before we do hop into anything though, a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, you can find the new OneFootball app in the top line of the description down below. Really handy app to have as we do head into this Championship season, which gets underway this week on Friday. So if you want to get live updates to your phone whenever a goal does go in the Championship, then OneFootball is the place to be for that. Keep on top of all the recent transfer speculation as well and stats. OneFootball really handy for it. But guys, without any further ado, let's go. Starting out at the bottom of the Championship, undoubtedly the underdogs coming into the Championship this season. Working with the lowest budget in the league, Gareth Ainsworth did a terrific job to get them promoted, but certainly has his work cut out for him this season. Now, there's no question Wycombe have their own unique way of playing, and I wouldn't actually be surprised to see them start the season quite well, quite similar to Charlton last season, but over a 46-game season, I'm not sure if they have that quality and depth to stay up. I think this is the obvious position really, isn't it? And myself, like quite a lot of people, would like to see Wycombe surprising a few people this year. I like some of the additions that they have made. Daryl Horgan, one player who I'm very excited to see how he does around this time in the Championship. Great impact play for the last 20 or so minutes, as that pace and quality out wide. Fred Onyedinma is one player who I'm interested to see gets on as well. But I think the competition at the bottom of the Championship will be strong as it was last season, and if that is the case, I'm not sure if they'll quite cut it. 23rd position, we have another of the promoted clubs, Rotherham. Now Rotherham have to try and get that monkey off the back of being known as that yo-yo club between League One and the Championship. Last time Rotherham did survive at this level was when Neil Warnock was in charge. This time around with Paul Warne, who I do rate as a manager, they have that task of trying to establish themselves once more as a Championship club. Now I like some of the business that they have done on a relatively tight budget. They've done some good work with free transfers, the likes of Kieran Sadler coming over from Doncaster Rovers, Angus MacDonald from Hull. They got Jamal Blackburn on loan from Chelsea, Wes Harding coming over from Birmingham. A lot of their season is going to be dependent on how some of their players from last season adapt to life in the Championship. You know, Freddie Lapido, their top scorer last time round. They've done some shrewd business, and this could be the one where they do manage to beat the drop, but I think the competition once again is going to be tough. 22nd position, and as that final relegated club, we then have Sheffield Wednesday. Now, probably one of the toughest predictions to make this season, with them starting on minus 12 points. They ended last season in absolutely horrific form. Since the turn of the year, they were quite poor. No side scored fewer home goals last season than Sheffield Wednesday, and goals is one area where I still think they may struggle coming into this season, having a strike force of Jordan Rhodes, Elias Kachunga and Josh Windass. Are those three players going to be enough going forward for Sheffield Wednesday? As well as that, they've lost obvious quality from last season with the likes of Stephen Fletcher and Murphy no longer being there. Realistically, Wednesday need to be in and around the top 10 in terms of their form throughout the season if they are to avoid the relegation zone with how tight the Championship is. And there is obvious quality in that squad. I think that quite a few of their bigger players underperformed last season. If they do get back to their best this time round, then they could pull something off. I like a bit of the recruitment they've done so far. Izzy Brown, if he stays fit, I think is a very good option. Shea Dunkley as well also has that goal threat from the back. But things went very stale last season under Gary Monk, and I'm not sure if they switched it off and up to avoid the drop with that point deduction. 21st position, we then have Luton Town. Now Nathan Jones came in and did a fantastic job after lockdown to keep Luton up. The one worry I have with Luton is shipping goals again in terms of shots faced. Last season they were right up there, conceded 82 goals. Only Hull, who finished bottom, conceded more last time round. Now they have looked into strengthening their defence. Tom Lockyer's come in from Charlton on the free transfer, which looks to be a nice bit of business. James Breeze come back this time on a permanent basis from Aston Villa. They certainly switched up the way they played prior to lockdown, but I still think they'll score goals. I think that Collins and Cornick have a good partnership between themselves. Jordan Clark looks to come in as that sort of spark of creativity, that replacement from Izzy Brown. I do think Luton will survive again, but they're certainly working against all the elements of the Championship and how good and competitive the bottom of the league is. 20th position, I'm then going to throw Huddersfield in there. I think that it's a team going through a bit of a transitional phase, going from the Cowleys to Carlos Corberán, two very conflicting philosophies, and with what he's working with in that squad, if things don't click straight away, it could take a little bit of time before Huddersfield get going this season. It's also looking more than likely that Carl Grant will be leaving. Steve Mounier has been linked away as well. So if those players do leave, a lack of goals may be a bit of a concern for Huddersfield this season. I think Corberan needs time because there are areas of quality within this squad, but from some of the loans they had last season, the players who look more than likely to leave, it may leave Huddersfield a little bit short this time round. 19th place, I've got Coventry. Really exciting side coming up from League One this season. I caught a few glimpses of them last time round. I think that going forward, they certainly have the capabilities to dominate matches. Some really encouraging transfer business done so far as well. They've looked overseas for a couple of deals. Gustavo Hamer's one really exciting deal. They've also used the loan market really well. Ben Sheaf from Arsenal I think is a very promising one. Tyler Walker on a permanent from Nottingham Forest as well adds more firepower going forward. Coventry could definitely be a surprise package this season. I played it a little bit safe by putting them in 19th, but I think they'll adapt well. 18th place, I then have Barnsley. It was a miraculous recovery last season that Barnsley were able to survive. Gerhard Struber's introduction into this side can't be underestimated. He made them much more resilient, tougher to beat, and it is a very young squad, which I think will be much better off this time round for that experience they gained from last season. I think that they learned a lot of lessons early on. They started the season awfully, but some of the signings they made in January seem to steady the ship a little bit. They've got goals in them. It's a really dynamic forward line they play with Cauley Woodrow, Jacob Brown and Connor Chaplin. Getting Ludwig back's also a big deal for them this season. A couple more additions, I think Barnsley will be set this time. 17th place, I've got Reading. Time will tell if it was the right decision for Mark Bowen to step aside. I think that there's a lot of potential with this squad, especially going forward. They've got a plethora of options really. Lucas João, George Puskas, Yaku Mete, all potential to get into double figures. Lucas João especially, if they keep him fit all season, could really flourish with some of the creativity that Reading have got in midfield. Getting over Ajaria back's massive for them if they keep hold of John Swift as well. They've got two of the most creative midfielders in the league. But Reading in recent years have pretty much defined the term inconsistency, haven't they? You know, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they ended up, you know, somehow challenging for the playoffs, or similarly to that if they were involved in a relegation scrap. There's no in between with this Reading squad, is there? It's all about how the manager adapts, because like I say, there is potential there. 16th place, I've got QPR. Now, Mark Warburton's already proved from last season that he's got it in him to rebuild a squad on a shoestring budget. He's been given that task again this season, really. You know, they no longer have the goals of Jordan Hugill. Aberi Eze and his creativity is going to be a miss, no doubt. However, I do trust Warburton. They played some really nice football from last season. I think that some of the recruitment so far has been quite promising. They also have a few players waiting in the wings to step up into the first team. You know, Ilias Chair, someone who I think is going to get a lot more game time this time round. Dykes, I think, will be a real handful at this level. I do expect a little bit of a drop off because of all that quality that they've lost in Eze, but still a comfortable season for QPR. 15th place, I've got Birmingham. Now, Aitor Karanka was a sensible appointment from Blues. I think that most Birmingham fans would actually accept a bit of a boring mid-table season where they put the building blocks in place for long-term success at the club. I think that's what's needed at Birmingham at the moment. Give Aitor Karanka time, because I think that the recruitment so far has been fairly promising. I think that they've certainly added in forward areas. They already had some great attacking players in there, you know, the likes of Danny Cowley, Jeremy Bella, now adding Rodriguez, Lecco, John Terrell into that mix as well. To go along with some of those players, they've had a championship experience with the likes of George Friend and Adam Clayton. I think that another striker and goalkeeper, and Birmingham will be set for a solid year. 14th place, I'm going to have Middlesbrough. Neil Warnock is the man for the championship, isn't he? And there's no doubts that Middlesbrough underachieved under Jonathan Woodgate last season with that squad they had. I mean, this was a team that not, you know, 2 seasons ago was challenging for the playoffs. In Ashley Fletcher and Britta Sombolonga, I think there's 2 strikers there who are both capable of notching up 15 goals a season each. With a few tweaks to that side in the transfer market, and the business has been fairly slow from Borough so far, a bit more dynamism added to that midfield, and I think that they'll be alright this time round. They could even go one better depending on what they do for the rest of this transfer market, but I think that under Neil Warnock, it'll be a solid season for Borough. 13th place, I've got Blackburn Rovers. Now, Blackburn could be potentially a bit of a dark horse for this season. I think I've played it fairly safe with where I've got them in this prediction, but they've got some great young talent. You know, at the spine of that team, they've got the likes of Ryan Miambi, Lewis Travis, Adam Armstrong, Sam Gallagher, who are all 24 years old or younger. It's a good core of players that they've got there. Added to that, the returning Bradley Dack as well. They certainly could be one to watch. I just feel like there's still one too many inconsistencies in that Rovers side. Still need to reshape that backline though after losing a player like Adebayo. We'll see, because it is a solid group of players there. If someone like Gallagher or Brereton can take their game to the next level, Blackburn seriously could be propelled up. Slap bang in the middle of the table, we are then going to have Stoke City. Now, they ended last season in absolutely fantastic form under Michael O'Neill. I think they're going in the right direction. For me, I still think they're a year or two off making the top 6, but I think they'll flirt with the idea this season. The recruitment so far has been good and targeted. John Obi Mikel especially comes in to anchor that midfield. I think think that if he manages to stay fit, could be really effective for them. Stephen Fletcher, who scored goals for fun last season for Wednesday while he was fit, did really well. And they do have a couple of youngsters who could turn out to be crucial for Stoke this season. You know, Tyrese Campbell's one of the most exciting products coming up from the EFL at the moment. It's a building process at Stoke at the moment. I still think there will be one or two inconsistencies. At the back, I know they've improved massively. James Chester's come back as well, but I still think they'll ship a few silly goals at times. They're going in the right direction, but I still think they may be a year off making the playoffs. 11th place, we're then going to have Bristol City. Now, the appointment of Dean Holden is the biggest unknown when it comes to this squad, because individually they are fantastic. I think they've got strength in depth. They've recruited really well. Joe Williams from Wigan, brilliant competitive midfielder. Chris Martin coming in from Derby. I think him and Naki Wells have the potential to form a really effective striker partnership this season. Midfield, they have really good options. I think that someone like Casey Palmer could have a new lease of life under a new manager. The reason I've got them in 11th though is just because of the unknown of Dean Holden. We don't know how he's going to do. There's loads of potential with that squad, but this season it could turn out to be a masterstroke or a disaster for Bristol City. We don't know, do we? 10th place, I've then got Bournemouth. Now, this could prove to be a bit of a wild card this season. No one really knows how Jason Tyndall's going to do, very similar to Bristol City's circumstances with Dean Holden as well. Bouncing back from a relegation is a tough thing to do. Just look at Huddersfield from last season. There's obvious quality in that squad. It's just a question of if they can turn the mentality around. You know, I think that people who could be key this season, the likes of Dom Solanke, Dan Joma, who looked brilliant the other day against West Ham, David Brooks, if he stays as well. It's a good crop of youngsters that they've got there. Although out of the three relegated clubs, Bournemouth squad is looking a little bit thin for me at the moment, with some of the sales that they've made, Callum Wilson to Newcastle being the latest one. They're yet to sign anybody, and I think depending on who they bring in, that'll make the difference between whether they make the top 6 or not. 9th place, I've then got Derby County. Now, I did have Derby a little bit higher up in my prediction, but as of recording, with it looking more than likely that Lowe and Bogle will both be departing heading to Sheffield United, that may have a bit of a hindrance on Derby's season, although they could go ahead and reinvest that money into, per se, another striker and wide player, and then that may bump them up again. It's so hard to make these predictions when the transfer market's not shut, but for Derby, I think they've added well with someone like David Marshall. He's an obvious improvement on Roos and Hamer, who were there last season. I think that Christian Bielik coming back from injury is also going to be big for them. They've got probably one of the most exciting young squads coming up through the league at the moment, but one departure that I do think is going to hit them a little bit is going to be Chris Martin. You know, can Jack Marriott be relied upon to stay fit for a full season? If he can, he has all the quality to go on and absolutely smash it, but it's a bit of an unknown with Derby, isn't it? And they've got a few more experienced heads in there, you know, the likes of Wayne Rooney and Curtis Davis. Getting Matt Clark back's also big. When things clicked at Derby last season, they were one of the most enjoyable sides to watch in the league. I just feel as if they're 1 or 2 players short at the moment, which they could go out and get. 8th place, I then have my side, Preston North End. I think this is a realistic prediction for us at the moment. I think that under Alex Neil, we've established ourselves as a top half championship side. Games are going to come thick and fast this season, and the squad, you know, the whole group of 25 players is going to be more important than ever. And I think that from the form that some people showed in lockdown, the likes of Brad Potts, Ryan Ledson, Jordan Story, even Scott Sinclair of late in pre-season, I think they could all play vital roles for us this season. And probably the biggest thing for North End so far is we've not had any major departures. You know, the likes of Ben Pearson, Daniel Johnson, Ben Davis, Alan Brown are all still here. There's real promise with this North End squad, there's no doubt about that. The only thing holding us back is a recognised number 9. I think that with that lack of competition up front for us, until we get something over the line, it may be another season where we flirt with the idea of the top 6 and then just end up falling short. I think that last season was a bit of a missed opportunity. After lockdown, we were in horrendous form, which saw us drop out of the top 6, from which we've been in all season pretty much. I think our season this time round is very much dependent on what else we do in the transfer market. 7th place and just missing out on the top 6, I then have Swansea. Now, Cooper Ball is in full swing. They were fantastic to watch at times towards the end of last season. It was a great run which saw them go on and make the top 6. It's a good young group of players which they've added to quite well in this market so far. You know, Morgan Gibbs-White I think could be great. Jamal Lowe as well, who ended the season brilliantly for Wigan, could come in and be brilliant linking up with someone like AU going forward. AU, by the way, is someone who's got all the quality to win a match by himself. 16 goals and 7 assists, you know, in the league last season when we were talking about the likes of the Ben Ramas, the Pereiras. In terms of numbers, AU was keeping up with them. The only reason I have them falling short this time round is because they don't have Brewster anymore. You know, Brewster was central to their play at times. You know, when they wouldn't have a great game, he was someone who could flip the game on its head like that, come up with that one moment of quality and get them over the line. I'm in no doubt they are still in the market for another striker, so we'll wait and see who they're going to get, and if they do bring in someone in with that real quality, I'd probably bump them up a place. They're going to go very close this season, Swansea. They'll be an interesting one to watch. But then moving on into my top 6. Now this is going to be probably my bravest take of the video. I'm going to back Millwall to make it in there. Now I've got a bit of reasoning behind this. I think that their recruitment so far has been targeted. I think they've done excellent business. Getting Ryan Woods and Mason Bennett back I think is wise. They've also added to their options going forward. Someone like Troy Parrott could make all the difference, like Brewster did with Swansea last season. Millwall were already going in the right direction under Gary Rowett. They were such an efficient side, especially at home, with that 5 at the back system, with those 2 wing backs who would bomb forward. Someone like Jed Wallace, who was absolutely phenomenal last season with some of the moments of magic he came up with. They won't concede many goals either. Last season they had the 6th best defensive record in the league. As a few sides have gone through transitions and a few sides have lost pretty big players, Millwall have kept everyone at the club and have added to that. They went really close last time round. They missed out by just 2 points, and I think that with the players they've added and the settled squad that they've got, I'm going to back them this time round. In 5th place, we are going to have Nottingham Forest. Now, they spent the vast majority of last season in the top 6, and it was only for one of the biggest capitulations on the final day that they didn't go ahead and make it in the end. But the recruitment so far is good, albeit they've lost the quality at right back of Matty Cash. They have players in the squad already who could potentially step up to fill that role. You know, Derek were back from injury perhaps, but I like some of the recruitment they've done so far. On free transfers, bringing in the likes of Lyle Taylor, Jack Colback, Tyler Blackett, Farad Basharu from Malmo as another defensive midfielder, and Luke Freeman, perhaps the best bit of business. Someone who knows this league inside and out, one of the best creative sparks. And I do think that was an area where they needed to look into a little bit, that creativity, which at times was lacking, especially in the home games where they became unstuck a little bit. You know, they already had one of the most clinical players at this level in Lewis Grabban. If they get that service to him, there's no reason why he can't hit 20 goals again. Defensively, they were also very good for last season. Only the top 4 conceded less goals than they did. I think they've recruited in the right areas, and I think that Lamucci's just going to be on a mission to make amends for last season, really. Forest will make it this time round, I think. 4th place, we then have Cardiff finishing 1 place higher than last season. I think that under Neil Harris, they have a clear identity. They're efficient in the way they play. They've also recruited well. They have the ability to switch up the way they play. They can either be direct or they can be actually quite effective on the counter-attack. If Lee Tomlin stays fit for a full season, I see no reason why they won't score more goals than last time round as well, with the added impetus of Kiefer Moore going forward. They probably won't be the most entertaining side to watch in the league per se throughout the year, but I think they'll be efficient enough to make the top 6 again. Then moving on into the top 3, in 3rd place, I then have Brentford. Now, for me personally, the 3 strongest sides at the moment in the league look to be Brentford, Norwich and Watford. Place those 3 in any order, and at the end of the month when the transfer window shuts, I could have a differing opinion on this one. At the moment, I'm sort of going off the assumption that Ollie Watkins and Ben Rama will no longer be Brentford players when the transfer window does shut. Even without those 2 though, Brentford are still fantastically strong. I think that, you know, defence and midfield are 2 really underrated characteristics of Brentford from last season. You know, everyone looks at their forward 3 because they are the ones that grab the headlines, but last season they only conceded 38 goals. I think with the amount of chances they create per 90 as well, Ivan Toney's going to have a fantastic season. Mark Hondas, who ended last season brilliantly, I think is only going to go on and get better. Realistically, the only thing that held them back from last season and not making the top 2 was that poor start they made. This time round, they could be thrown off a few weeks into the season if Watkins and Ben Rama do depart, but that squad's still more than good enough to be competing at the top for me. 2nd place, I'm gaining automatic promotion. I then have Norwich City. Now, this Norwich squad and Daniel Farke has the know-how of how to get promoted. You know, last time in the Championship, they absolutely blitzed the league, playing some fantastic football along the way. Their season in the Premier League didn't go to plan. They shipped way too many goals, but what I've liked about Norwich so far, their recruitment has been spot on, and they've also kept hold of all their massive saleable assets so far, which I don't think anyone expected them to. You know, the likes of Max Aarons, Emi Buendia, Timu Pukki, Todd Cantwell are all still Norwich City players. By the end of the transfer window, that may no longer be the case, but their squad is looking so deep at the moment. Added to that, the valuable Championship experience of someone like Ben Gibson, who will come in and shore them up at the back. Jordan Hughes Hugo, who gives them an extra dynamic going forward. We all know the football to expect from Norwich. You know, they didn't change their philosophy, probably to their detriment at times in the Premier League, but they're well adapted to Championship life. They keep the ball well, create a lot of chances, and I expect them to score a lot of goals, enough goals at least, to get them into the top 2 for me. Which means then coming in first place and winning the Championship, we do have Watford. Now, even this season, I don't think it's as clear-cut as last time, and around the top of the Championship, anything could happen, but looking into their squad at this point in time, the difference between Watford and per se Bournemouth, who have both come down together, whereas Bournemouth have had a bit of a fire sale so far in terms of key players leaving, Watford have done really well to keep that group together so far. Now, I'm expecting players to leave in the next few weeks. You know, the likes of Delafeu, Kapuri is probably going to be off, a few others as well, but there's still real quality in that squad. If they do manage to keep 1 or 2 of those big players, you know, someone like a Saar maybe, I mean, their forward line could be absolutely devastating if they did. You know, imagine that forward 3 of Saar, Suarez and Pedro. They have it in them to score goals for fun then, don't they? They've also been linked to some pretty exciting players as well. You know, Matt Grimes, we spoke about recently from Swansea. They got a fantastic goalkeeper there in Ben Foster. He brings the experience along with new signing Glenn Murray as well. Even Andre Gray at this level could have a go at rekindling his career at Watford. At the back with the likes of Wilmot and Dawson. In midfield, Hughes, who could be fantastic once again. It's a very talented squad there. It's just about how Vladimir Ivic gets the best out of them. You know, we all know Watford's track record with managers. If he doesn't get off to the best of starts, we wouldn't be surprised to see another one coming in. But I think he's got all the tools to succeed with that Watford squad. And for me, at this point in time, a week to go until the season starts, I think they're the ones to watch. But guys, as you can see to the side of me, there are my Championship predictions for the upcoming season. I want to know from you guys, who would you have as your bottom 3 and as your top 6? Where would you also have your club placed on this one? Do you think I've been too kind or too harsh on your club? Would you have them higher or lower? It's all for a bit of fun at the end of the day, so don't take it too seriously. I'm not banking on getting too many of these right, but we'll see. That's why we all love the Championship, isn't it? Because of the unpredictable nature of it. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you did go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.